Welcome to the tutorial on tips for using the Fruity Slicer. Now we all know that the slicer is a great tool for chopping up beats, but I wanted to take a look at using it for some more unconventional ways to get some new sounds out of it. In this first example, I want to use a non-percussive sample to create a percussive rhythmic background for the original sample. So I'll go ahead and load the slicer. And then what we need to do is load a sample, and I've got one here. And then I'm going to set this down at 135. And what we'll do first is go in here and you can hear the sample play. To begin with, I'm going to go through and remove all these little notes in between. We're doing this just to clear out some unnecessary noise. And then I'm going to go through and select all the notes and we'll move them over. Also, I've got the snap selector set at a quarter step, and I'm just going to drag all of the notes so that they just take up a quarter. So I'll go ahead and play that. And then what we can also do, I'm going to go ahead and copy what we have on the screen and then paste. And then I'm going to drag that over. I'm going to do it again. Let's do this a couple times in here. And you would have to work on your own to create your own rhythm, but I'll just do something random here. And then I'm going to go through and select everything that's not on this first hit here. I don't know if I can get this on the first hit. Just go through and try to select some of these. I'm just going to lower the volume all the way across there, just so that we can have some accents. So this gives a little bit more spice to the original sample. My suggestion would be to throw something like this in every now and then throughout the track to function as a fill to keep things interesting. As I pointed out in the tutorial on working with drums, producers who know what they're doing will throw in little subtle drum rolls, fade-ins and fade-outs, slight modifications to the melody every now and then. That's just to keep the listener engaged, keep your track interesting. Even if you have a great song, it doesn't hurt to add some depth to it by changing things up every few bars by simply adding in some ear candy. And also, this method works great because we're using the same sample for each, so you can mix things together as well. An idea might be to take different elements from different parts of the song and have them pop in and out in different places. Another way that we can use the slicer is to use the arpeggiator function and adjust what chord is being played. To do this, I'm going to reload. Just go ahead and take that out. I'll go back in here. And this time I'm going to look for a drum sample. Let's see. Let me see. Actually, I'll go here. Now this yields some unpredictable results sometimes, so we'll just have to play around and see what we can do. So I'm just going to experiment with some different settings here and we'll see what we can get out of it. So we saw how just using the arpeggiator gave us some totally new beats. And again, this was what I was talking about before, something that might be cool to use as a fill with some effects on it every now and then throughout the track or for a breakdown. But again, it's something that you have to experiment with because the arpeggiator isn't something that's supposed to be used for arpeggiating the slicer, but again, it can yield some kind of neat results. You just have to play around with it on your own, with your own samples. Now the last example I want to look at uses the slicer to rearrange notes, turning it into a composing tool. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and we'll reinsert the slicer again. Now to do this, we need a sample that has multiple notes laid out in a clear and concise manner, and then we'll rearrange the notes to form a new melody. So for this, let's see, I had a sample here. I'm going to go ahead and draw this all the way back. Now what I want to do is copy and paste this so that we have it on here twice, and then we'll work with this second set. Now as I play this example, I'm going to be moving around notes here from this second set and see if we can rearrange this in some sort of usable fashion. So in that example, we saw how moving around a couple notes can form a new melody. And again, this is something you'd have to experiment with and try things out. You might want to use the quantize function to make sure that all the notes line up. And again, to do this, it's going to be a lot easier if you have a sample, again, that has clear, hard notes. To do this with a pad or a string sample might be a little bit harder. But those are just a few of the things that we can do with the slicer. Of course, the slicer is always a very powerful tool to slice beats and has a lot of cool functions to work with it in that capacity, so of course remember to play around with drums as well. As with any of the plugins in FL Studio, don't be afraid to experiment with different settings. I've found that some of the coolest things that I've come across have come from accidentally discovering something when I was just playing around. So as always, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.